Hello everyone, welcome to part 5 of my Street Fighter 5 modding tutorial series. In this tutorial I'm going to show how to bake a normal map in Blender from a high poly mesh or from a Dyntopo mesh, which is dynamic topology. Um, I'll be using my updated version of Demonic Necali in this example. Here I have my high poly mesh of Necali. I have subdivided it into a third subdivision. I'll apply that in a moment. I deleted his hair 2 material just to make the actual baking portion faster, because I'm not going to be baking his hair 2. I'm just going to bake in these veins that I've added and the chest scar that I've added here, along with the veins on the face and around his ribs and back and legs. Okay, so first things first, we're going to import the normal Necali, which I have here. Okay, I'm going to remove the armature. Okay, now you're going to want to open up a second window here. So if you place the mouse cursor right above where that rigid part is of the upper right hand corner of the window, left click on it before you see the plus and just drag it out. You'll open up a window. This little box right here, left click on that, click UV image editor, scroll up a little bit. Now we can go ahead and hide the subdivided mesh for a moment. This is the default Necali. Sorry guys, this shouldn't have happened. I'm going to do this again. So what I'm going to do here now is go into edit mode. Now, this is the standard layout of the UV map, which is used by the character. Normally when you unwrap the mesh, Blender will try to proportion it as best it'll fit on the base. Each of these sections is called an island. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to eliminate some of the excess vertices that is showing there. So we'll go to Materials tab by left clicking on that little circle. I'll take it to the materials. I am now going to deselect. First, let's go back over here. Press A to unselect all, A again to select all. We're going to deselect lens, eye lens. You see it's moved some vertices, and then scroll all the way down and deselect hair 2, which are the hairs that are popping off on the back of his head. And now we have a good base. Each one of these sections Blender refers to as an island. We want to maintain that island layout, so the best way to do that would be to pin these vertices to this base. First we'll create a texture for the box that we're going to be unwrapping to. I'm just going to name this EFE new norm2.tga. Set the size for the normal map, which is 4096 by 4096. There's no alpha layer in the normal maps for Street Fighter 5, so we remove alpha, leave generated type as blank, and click OK. Okay, now we've added just a blank texture to the bottom of this base. Now, let me open this up a little bit so you can clearly see these boxes. These boxes here are important for what we're going to do next. You want to click on this little box, which says keep UV and edit mode mesh selection in sync. That will highlight on your base all the same vertices that are highlighted on the mesh in the 3D view. We then click on UVs, pin, or the P key for shortcut. You'll see now they're marked in red. So they have been pinned to the base. Now when you unwrap it, it'll unwrap the mesh in that exact location. So with the cursor in the 3D view window on the left, you click the U key for unwrap and just click unwrap. Okay, now our low poly mesh has been unwrapped to this base. Now we're ready to do something similar for the high poly mesh. So first we gotta select that high poly mesh. We'll automatically go back to object mode, which is fine. Now, just for learning purposes, I'm going to show you here what my current normal map looks like. This is my current normal map, which I created in NDO. Well, actually, I did this one in D2. This is going to be the base of which I'm going to bake my new normal map onto. So it'll retain most of what's here, plus add all of the differences between the mesh. I did that mainly just to show you guys what normal map is already attached to the object. It gets attached automatically based on the maps that you have in your folders when you load a mesh into Blender. Now, what we need to do now, I need to apply my multi-res modifier that I used to subdivide my mesh into basically 4 subdivisions. This way I'll be able to bake the difference. If I uncheck this, you can see here all of this is added on the highest subdivision that I have for my multi-res mesh. So when I apply this, it's automatically going to apply all of the subdivided vertices, faces, and edges. So it will slow down a little bit because of the amount of subdivisions that I did to create these veins. I'll just apply those now. Okay, now we gotta go back into edit mode with the high poly mesh. Okay, now this one's a little different because I've already removed islands and hit the hair too. All I need to do is just select everything on here. And pin it. We don't unwrap this one. We don't need to add a texture for it either. We just need to pin it to the base here. I will then, holding the shift key, left click. First I have to highlight the new mesh. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, now holding the shift key, I'm going to select the low poly mesh, which is the normal default one. It may take some time. Okay, now that we have both selected here, we'll go back into edit mode. And here, we click on this, the first item in this list, which is render. And I'll go ahead and scroll down. You'll see bake here. Click on bake, check mark next to selected to active, bake mode normals. And then we could now click bake, and it's going to bake out the differences onto this area and create a normal map for us. You want to leave normal spacing as tangent. Very few games are going to use object space normals. That's a different type of normal map. It's a bunch of different colors in it. Has a different purpose than tangent. So now that I've clicked bake on the very top, you'll see where it says texture bake. Right now it's at 0%. Because of how high the poly count is for my high poly mesh, this is actually going to take a while. So I'll just wait for it to finish, and then I'll continue the tutorial from there. We'll be back in a few. Okay, so welcome back. Finally finished baking. Now we're going to check our baked texture. We can do that fairly easily by going to object mode, click on this little paper looking thing here, and scroll down until we see our new normal, which is right here, EFE new norm 2. And here you can see that it, based off of the old normal map, it has added all of the veins that I added to the new mesh in fairly significant detail. It all looks very good. So now you can actually save in this window. You see where it says image here, you click on that, click save as image. It'll bring up the image saver. You just select the folder, image type, I save as Targa, RGB, save as render, give it a name, which this name is fine, save as image. You can also do the same thing with Dyntopo. Let's start a new project. And, well, I guess it's easier just to exit. That's how much memory was being eaten up by multi-runs. I really don't get the point in using that. It eats up a ton of memory, and it's really not that useful. Not for art. Alright, sorry about that, guys. I had to step away for a moment. Okay, so let's go ahead and load up Kali really quick. Alright. We're just gonna mess around really quick. So I'll go into sculpt mode. Set this to 20. So let's go ahead and activate or enable Dyntopo. You'll see the little warning telling you that it will not preserve your vertex colors, UVs, or custom data, whatever. Go ahead and set this to 0.8. I like to work on smooth surface, so I always enable smooth. Click optimize just to optimize the viewport. And this is actually nice for adding detail to your mesh. I'm not too sure about how good it would be to add large objects to the mesh using this. I guess it could be functional at some point. Right now what I'm doing is just messing around to show you how you could bake most of what you're seeing in here fairly easily. Of course, anything that's extruding as much as this is cannot be applied strictly through normal mapping. You would need to utilize at least a low poly that extrudes and add the detail that you want through this method. But this is just a really quick show the same type of baking to low poly as it's done through multi-res texture. So I'm done here. I can go ahead and disable this. And now we'll bring in our low res map. Mesh. And the procedure's pretty much the same. We're going to open this up. UV image editor. Make sure that we have the right mesh selected. We're going to deselect islands and hair 2. Sync the view. Pin it. Well, actually, we're going to add the texture first. Okay, now we pin it. View key to unwrap. Okay, now we do this similar to the high poly, which is the one that we just edited. That's shift left click. We go to edit mode. And then bake. No. And click bake. And we're going to bake out the difference. This will actually be a little quicker, because it's the entire mesh is in high poly. Only the parts that we've edited are very high poly. It's good for sculpting, adding a ton of detail to your mesh if you want. Controlling the brush size will allow you to add smaller and more minute detail to your mesh. You bake out the difference to a normal map and you apply in the normal map directly to the regular mesh in the game, and you will see the difference. If you're going to be adding or removing clothing, that's a different story. I'm not a 3D modeler. I don't know how to remove clothing. I don't know how to swap mesh parts. I've just learned how to do this, and this is actually fairly easy to do. So I decided to create this tutorial and share it with the rest of the community in case anyone else finds this useful. So that will conclude the tutorial for today. Stay tuned for more tutorials coming shortly. I will show a little bit of editing materials. Well, actually editing the values of materials through the actual material files instead of doing it through texture intensities. Alright everybody, well, leave a like if you liked the video, comment down below, don't forget to subscribe, and see you next time. Thank you.